Are you ready to mount this ridiculous tail wheel? I'm going to do that and finish up the servos in the fuselage. So let's go ahead and zoom in and get to work. Alright, here is where this tail wheel goes, and this plastic mount is already in the fuselage. And we will push through the push rod, this time from the front back, and you can see it. There's a place for it to go. And here is this ridiculous tail wheel. Look how big this thing is. I don't know why it's that big. It's heavy. It's pretty crazy. But there is the horn that sandwiches in that holder, and there's a flat spot on the tail wheel, and the tail wheel goes in through that horn, and the only way this is attached to the fuselage is that one bolt through this plastic control horn onto that flat spot on the tail wheel. So this bolt that I'm tightening right now to that flat spot is the only thing holding the whole tail wheel assembly in, because the push rod itself is connected to that horn, which is connected to the tail wheel through that one bolt. So this is something I'm not too happy about, the design. If there's vibrations or whatnot, if that bolt comes loose, the tail wheel is just going to fall straight out. So I've put the quick link on the end of the push rod, and we are just now connecting it to the horn for the steering of the tail wheel. Rest assured that this is such a stout tail wheel, you will never have any damage at the rear of the fuselage. Okay, so the rudder and the tail wheel push rods are pretty much right on space, how long they are, but the two elevator push rods need to be trimmed down because they're wide together with that little contraption. So this is the step here showing I needed to trim these push rods, so I just took the Dremel and trimmed it down a little bit. And whenever I cut a metal push rod, I always go with the end there, and usually it's pretty sharp, pretty razor sharp after you cut that, so I always just kind of round the edges here, and that's what you see me doing on top of the cutting wheel. Really not a lot of pressure, just a light pressure, rolling it in my fingers to just smooth out the top so it doesn't accidentally rip open some flesh. So now these push rods are the correct length. We will slide them back into the fuselage one at a time for the last time. Just look at that tail wheel. Look how huge that tail wheel is. You don't notice it until you start playing with it and you mount it, and it's really ridiculous. I'm actually wanted to weigh it for you, but I have it in there nice and secure with that bolt, and I don't want to loosen it. But it's ridiculous. So I did get the servo situation resolved. I found a small plastic double arm for the rudder and used a hole close in for the tail wheel, and then on the other side a hole further out for the rudder itself. So that's what it looks like inside. And here I have them hooked up to a servo tester, the HFP30 from High-Tech, and just getting some first views of the movement of the elevator, and then switch over to the rudder so you can see the rudder and the tail wheel moving. Looks like we got good throws according to the manual. And we're ready to move on. So the next step is this plastic tail wheel cover. And whenever an ARF comes with these pieces of plastic, I'm always like, man, this kind of stinks, because they always end up not looking good, and then you realize you just kind of glance over them in the pictures because they're there, but they just don't look good. So I always hate when I see this, but hey, let's make the best out of it. So I'm going to show you a few steps that I do when I cut these things out. So first, I have a small pair of scissors, and I'll get the edge, the flashing, or the molding around off the easy parts with some scissors. I used to have some nice curved thread scissors, but I think my wife stole them. They're more like body scissors for RC cars. But they're really sharp, but these will do just fine. So first step is kind of get what you can off. So I've done a lot, and then when you start getting to the curves, it's hard. And so you can see where I've tried to get into this curve here, and I didn't want to rip the plastic. So what I did was I got out my trusty Hobbyco heated hobby knife, and this thing's pretty cool. I'll have a link to it down in the description, but that thing it's basically a solder iron that heats up a hobby blade. So this thing will cut through plastic like butter, and in fact it cuts through almost too good, so you have to be careful because you can really easily go outside of the line. So you can see I wanted to show you about how much pressure I'm using to get off some of these flash pieces inside. I'm going to take two passes at it. First is to get those pieces off, and you can see there's a little bit in the corners I'm going to get off, and this is where I'm going a little bit slower to really follow that line with this heated X-Acto blade to cut into this plastic. So this works good. So this is an alternative to getting really small scissors or possibly breaking or cracking the plastic with bigger scissors. However, because it's actually melting it, you can see there's some melted flash around where we cut. The cut looks nice and the shape looks nice, but we got some melted plastic. So that's something that you just need to take account for. I'm going to go on to a third step, and when I finish getting what I can off here with the glue, there's those melted flashes around the plastic. I'm going to get the Dremel out, put a sanding wheel on it, and keep it at a very low speed, actually the lowest speed there is, and I'm going to apply very light pressure to really do the final round of getting the uneven spots down and getting that melted flash away. So again, low speed, low pressure, take your time. You don't want to kill this plastic, you just want to get the edges right where you want them, and this is where you have the opportunity to kind of round some edges if something's sharp, or if there's a little jagged pieces, you can kind of sand those down very easily. So take your time, very light pressure, and get this looking as nice as you want it to look. I start on the back here, and then you'll see me go to that inside part to get some of that melted portions off of there. And we have a little foreshadowing here. I have the pilot on the bench. We're going to be ready to mount the pilot and glue the cockpit in. Next step. So here I'm going inside, really nice and easy, trying to get some of those melted pieces of plastic and smooth out this edge. Yeah, this is, use your judgment how much time you want to spend here. Some people will want this absolutely perfect. Me being a realist, no one's ever going to look down there by the tail wheel, so I'm doing it good enough to make it look pretty decent. I'm not competing this in Scale Masters or anything. It's just a fun plane to fly. So just wanted to show you some steps on what you need to do, and considering everything else you have to build for an ARF, you have to spend a substantial amount of time on these pieces of body plastic molding, and it's always annoying, but we'll do it. We'll get through it, and this is a place where you get to choose how much effort you want to make it look as good as you'd like. All right, the pilot is watching. He's making sure we're getting this tail wheel installed perfectly. So yeah, this is how that piece of plastic fits on the bottom, and it basically just covers up that big opening where the tail wheel goes in. The instruction manual says to glue it on there. I don't think that's smart because we don't know how this tail wheel is going to act. There's one bolt in there to hold it in, and also the quick link and the steering adjustments. I'm going to go ahead and use servo mounting screws to mount this piece of plastic. It's not going to look as good, but here's the thing. It already doesn't look good, and even if you glued it, it's still going to look the same. So what I did, I found the smallest RTL fasteners. I'm using the number 2 5/16. These are the really little guys. You wouldn't even think of using these for servos or for full-size servos, but they're the smallest ones. I'm going to use 5, 1 on the bottom and 2 on each side. And so here you just saw me get the piece exactly where I want it and mount it with tape, and I'm just going to drill right in here with the 1/16. Drill with the 1/16 bit, and then use the number 2 5/16 servo mounting screws from RTL Fasteners. And we are going to speed up the rest of this, and we will call it a day. So everyone, I think we have one more episode left. I'm going to take some time. I'm going to get all of the electronics installed, wire the ESC, run all the wires. Right now the wings have like 2 feet of servo extensions for the flaps, ailerons, and retracts. I'm going to clean all that up. I'm not going to film all that because that's going to vary depending on your electronics and your installation. So next episode, we're going to go through all of the electronics, show you what I did, where I mounted things, where I mounted the receiver, where I ran the wires, etc., etc. And we will get the cowl on, we will get the prop and the nose cone on, and we're going to have one more episode before this plane is ready to sit for the rest of the springtime, or rest of the winter and springtime. And the next video you will see after this final one will be when we get to fly it here in a couple months. So thanks for tuning in, guys. We got this ridiculous tail wheel installed, and we'll see you in a few days to look at all the electronics for the final build video of the Seagull Perestroika. See you soon, guys.